And the whole point of it is that AI may know a lot, but know nothing, right? And so the idea that, I don't think we'll ever be replaced by AI because it can't be creative, right? It can only think of things that it's been trained on. It can't make these creative connections that we do as humans.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the industry. We take you to the front lines, to those that are driving those changes. As always, I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me, coming to us from the great Garden State this afternoon.
No, I am actually in Florida.
Okay. All right.
Never mind. Correct me. When you see this white chair behind me, that's my office in Florida. So
the elevated grand Dan Gordon. Dan, would you like to say good afternoon? This is when we're recording it. Introduce our topic, our sponsors, and our guest.
Okay. So good afternoon from sunny Florida. It's Dan Gordon from PCO Bookkeepers, PCO M&A specialists. So may have heard the news that we've expanded the Industry Insiders, offering peer groups in partnership with industry veteran David Billingsley. And to learn more, go back and listen to episode 136, where we interviewed David and he spoke about the peer groups, or visit pmpindustryiinsider.com/peer groups. We've assembled several of them since we started touting that on the podcast. So that's been really cool. And there's some room in one of the newest ones. So if you're interested, that, let us know. This episode is sponsored by Coal March by WorkWave. If you're interested in marketing your business, pest control, lawn care, visit them at coalmarch.com. And if you're interested in insurance for the pest control industry, it's PestSure. Visit them at pestsure.com for workers' comp, for auto, for general liability. I know that the market is very difficult for insurance right now. People are calling me, hey, where can I get insurance? Call Todd Burke at PestSure. He has some pretty interesting programs that he works on, and they're specific to pest control. And so today we have a very special guest.
Very special.
Very special guest. The special guest is Donnie.
Oh, boy.
And
yes.
He's talking about his second favorite topic. His first favorite topic is Donnie. His second favorite topic is AI.
You're close. Hang on. You're close. The first
go ahead.
Is myself. Yes, that's true. The second is actually airplanes. If you get me talking about airplanes, I can spend a lot of time talking about airplanes. But yes, okay. So number 3. We'll call it 2.5.
Okay. So number 3. But by the way, the first one is one that everybody loves, right? The second one is airplanes. I'm not a pilot, and you are, and I've flown with Donnie. He's a very safe pilot. He does things very safely. You feel good about being in an airplane with Donnie. And but the third one is AI, and we've already done, I don't know, I think a couple of episodes on AI. But I think that this thing is changing business. It's changing so rapidly. It's like the thing to know about. So I don't think that we could just do one and done or two and done. I think that this, as new things happen and as we learn, because, basically I'm using AI to help me write articles and put copy out there and things like that, right? But you have taken it to a whole new level. And for those who don't know, Donnie has a programming background. He was a programmer. And so, he naturally can, get into those things, whereas I am a neophyte Neanderthal when it comes to technology. Matter of fact, has this microphone today. This is because I couldn't get the real one to work. Anyway, so we're going to talk about how AI works, how to leverage it in 2024. And again, we'll probably do another one or more on AI. I mean, AI is just, it's all the rage and everybody's involved with it. And so anyway, so let's start.
Well,
Where-
yeah, I was going to say, but first of all, thank you for I think I don't know what episode number this is, but I am certainly going to bookmark it because I got a compliment from Dan just a while ago, saying I'm a safe pilot.
Wait,
So
I didn't mean to. Where?
Yeah, yeah.
What did I say? Must have
But
been a mistake.
yeah. So having said that, I do want we did decide to do another episode on AI, mainly because not mainly, but this is changing so rapidly, and this technology is changing so rapidly. And I did a presentation at the United We Stand meeting in North Carolina just about 2 weeks ago, and I had to do a ton of prep work, and it forced me to really dig into AI even more so. And since then, it has become somewhat of an obsession to me. And so we thought we would go and dig into what's the latest with AI. I also want to talk a little bit about one of the things I learned as part of that presentation is that a lot of people don't fundamentally understand how AI works. So we're going to spend a little time on that as well. And then lastly, we talk a little bit about where you can use it in your business now. I mean, a lot of folks are already using this. I'm sure there's many of our listeners that are using it pretty much daily. And then we're going to get into a little speculation about what's going on in the AI world, because as of this recording, Sam Altman, who was the CEO of OpenAI, got canned, and then over a weekend got rehired back. And there's a bit of speculation and controversy about that. So we will speculate.
You think that they use EOS and the People Analyzer to make sure that Sam was a good fit?
Yes.
Get it, want it, and had the capacity to do it.
For sure. Well, I will tell you, it's kind of crazy when you look at what led up to that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But here's what I will say before I get into any of this. We're going to release this, and if you're listening to it a year later, you're probably going to laugh at us. This field is changing so fast. One of the points I made in the presentation to folks that I was presenting to is don't even bother with books. I would be very leery of even articles that you read, because if they're 6 or 8 months old, chances are there has been rapid changes in this industry. And so I would recommend that you go to YouTube. Legitimately, if you want to learn about AI and you want to keep up with what's happening, what the latest and greatest is. For me personally, I have found YouTube to be a massive resource, and it's able to keep up with the pace of this technology. And so, getting into it now, let's talk a little bit about AI in general. If you've been watching like CNBC, I know that's one of Dan's favorite websites. He sends me articles from there all the time. But if you watch these interviews or earning calls with CEOs or tech CEOs, I'm not joking. It's like every other word is AI. Hello, my name is AI, Donnie AI Shelton. I mean, they just want to just continue to over and over and over hammer this keyword. And one of the reasons is that it's such a hot technology right now. And if you ever look, and we can probably post this presentation. I don't mind doing this, posting this presentation up on the podcast website. But there's what's called the hype cycle, and Garner actually puts this out. And the whole idea, and I can't show this if you're on YouTube, I could probably show it to you. But there's this whole idea of like, there's some new technology comes out on the field. There's this huge expectations for what's going to happen with that technology. And then people will start using technology, realize, well, it's not going to do everything. It's not going to do my taxes. It's not going to do all these other things. And so there's this time of disillusionment. And then after that, the technology kind of comes back up, and you kind of find where it's going to be useful. I would say right now with AI, we are probably at the peak of inflated expectations when you look at this curve in terms of hype. It could not be more hyped around AI than there is now. And so the question becomes, why is there so much hype around this technology? And we've talked about this before, Dan, but I mean, a real simple exercise to do this is just whip out your phone and then count how many billion-dollar companies are on your phone, how many apps are there. So if you take a look at Uber, for example, billion-dollar company. You take a look at YouTube, billion-dollar company. What are some other ones you can think of, Dan?
You feel Bookkeepers has an app, but that
billion-dollar company, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
you just heard it here in this
but
podcast.
But all your airlines, DoorDash, everything.
I mean, you think about even like Spotify, and so a good question to ask when you whip out your phone and you take a look at these apps and you take a look at these companies that are on your phone. How many of those companies would not exist had it not been for the smartphone being invented? You know what I mean? Like, it just, how many of those would exist? Well, you can take out Spotify, you can take out Uber, right? You can take out a lot of these companies that literally the smartphone ushered in a whole new age of companies. I mean, billion-dollar industries. And if you think about it, the smartphone, like Steve Jobs didn't actually introduce the smartphone until 2007, which, let's do the math on that. Okay. So it's 2023. Let's take 4 from that. I mean, how many years is that, Dan? 16. Good job. Yeah.
19.
I know that. Yeah. So it's 16 years. And in the 16 years, how many billion-dollar companies were created because of the smartphone? And so the reason, what that has to do with AI is that, the smartphone was absolutely what's called a catalyst technology, meaning that, it was the catalyst for these other companies to create basically a whole new another industry that would be products and services for consumers. And without that catalyst technology, they simply would not exist. So when you look at, technology that comes online, some technology is kind of gee whiz stuff. Some technology is a big deal. And I'm telling you right now, AI is one of those big deals. And this is why everyone's talking about it, is because it's not simply like, the smartphone in and of itself. It's like, well, big deal, right? You've got basically an iPod, right? Remember back in the days when we had those. You have an iPod, now you've added a phone line, and then you add this data line. And then once you add those two things, it's like, okay, it's kind of useful. But then you offer it's this whole platform that developers can write apps that can use GPS coordinates, that can use phone data, that can use your own personal data, and pull it all together and put it right in the palm of your hand. Now it gets really, really interesting. And so this is not anything new, like this process. I mean, if you think about it, steel ushered in the industrial age, the personal computer ushered in the information age. AI is going to usher in a completely new age, and there will be another round of billion-dollar companies who understand AI and are able to leverage it, including, we don't have that many billion-dollar pest and lawn companies, so I don't want to make that claim. I'm not going to get that wild, but I will say this: it absolutely is going to transform how we work. It will. If you think about how we route, you think about how we do customer service, you think about how we generate content. I mean, almost every aspect of your business is going to have some sort of impact with AI. It's just going to happen. Now, we're not there yet, but the fact is that if you're an owner and if you're a manager, leader, whatever, right, you really need to start paying attention to this. If you've not gotten yourself on YouTube and started looking at this technology and really understanding it, take a rainy weekend and legitimately, start taking some time to learn about it, because it absolutely, I believe that if you don't implement this into your business and you don't understand it, you are simply going to get left behind, because it is so powerful and it provides such a strategic advantage that if you're not there, you're going to get left behind. I mean, we are a relationship business. I don't ever want to take that out. It's not like AI is going to replace relationships. It won't. But the fact is that when it comes to efficiency and doing more with less, it is going to completely transform our industry. So is the hype cycle justified? Probably. Did I just feed unrealistic expectations? Most likely. Not really meaning to.
No question about it. It is a relationship business, but you're right. Especially, when you talk about inflation and prices going up, and then you talk about our cost study and how I say that it always reverts to the same thing. The costs of your percentages for 100 years have been the same, right? The numbers may have gone up, but the percentages are the same. And if the prices are going up of everything with inflation, you've got to become more efficient, right? So that's why, 50, 75 years ago, you didn't have all these discounters, right? Now everybody is, it's a race to the bottom. But the question is, if you're racing to the bottom, how do you make a profit? It's all about efficiency.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because, the numbers have stayed the same, but they've actually gotten better. I mean, you think about the advent of triennial service, and I remember when I first got in the industry, if a technician was able to produce 12, 15K a month, it's like, yeah, man, he's super productive. Now it's like, if they're below 30K with triennial service, you're like, what's going on? right? I mean, so the percentages should be getting better. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend. But, one of the things that I want to talk about on this episode, because I think a lot of people don't understand it, and I'm going to do my best to explain it. Obviously, I don't have a whiteboard. We're not sitting around a classroom or whatever. We will link up the presentation. So if you want to download a copy, you're happy to do that, which the presentation has all kinds of documents. And I mean,
by the way, just so that you know, and I do lots of presentations and whatnot, and usually the rule of thumb is maybe a minute and a half to 2 minutes per slide. Donnie did this presentation at United We Stand in 60 minutes. It's 101 slides. So, and unfortunately I wasn't there, so I just wanted to see how he did it, but I'm looking at the presentation right now. So,
well, I do have to be completely transparent. I skipped an entire section in order to yes, I did. There was an entire section. I said, listen, the benefit of doing the presentation is the preparation. I will give everyone a copy when it's done, and you can go through and benefit from all the other info that's on there, but we're going to talk about what's important. And so having said that, let's talk a little bit about, again, if you're an owner, if you're a leader, you need to understand how AI works and how it's structured, because AI in of itself, like that term, it's kind of a clunker, right? Because AI is a general term. And when most people say AI, what do they think of? What do you think, Dan? What do you think of when you hear AI?
I think of ChatGPT or Bard.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what most people think of, right? But when you look at AI, ChatGPT and Bard or whatever, those are just one small sliver of an overall field of AI and how it all works. And so one of the easiest ways I have found to explain what AI is and how it all works is really in a metaphor of a human, right? So AI, like for example, let's talk about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is what's called a large language model, meaning that all it does is looks at words and patterns, figures out what words and patterns go together, and then generates words and patterns that go along with that pattern that you gave me that was most likely to match that pattern. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So if you think of a human, right? A human is the most intelligent thing that we know. Most of them, right? And and we're able to operate independently and intelligently. Most of us, right? Yes. Yeah. And so when you think about a human, right? A human can communicate through language. So like right now we're talking, you're understanding thoughts and ideas that I'm having. I'm understanding thoughts and ideas that you're having, and we're doing it through language. In the world of AI, that's actually called speech recognition. And you can think of several ways in which this is leveraged. So let's think about it. You got Siri, you've got Alexa, and that is all a form of what's called statistical learning, meaning that, I'm not going to get into the computer science of this, but there's a thing called phonemes. There's like 13 in the English language. You take basically 13 sounds, and that makes up all the words that we have in our English language. And so that's nothing more speech recognition. That's a form of AI. The other one is that a human. So first of all, a human can communicate through language. A human can also write and read text. That's what's called natural language processing, or NLP, which is nothing more than another form of statistical learning. Okay. So basic stuff so far. Again, I'm just giving you kind of the fields of AI because it's a lot. I don't think
it's very basic.
Well, so long story short,
you're in the weeds already, but go ahead.
I'm trying to get out of them. I'm trying to get it back. But you think about, yeah. And again, if you pull this presentation down, there's a nice little diagram that kind of shows how all this pieces together. But I think it's important for you as an owner to understand the different fields, because when someone says AI, you really need to dig into what they're really talking about, because it's not just ChatGPT. It's one little small section of it. So going back to this whole idea of a human metaphor, right? So we can see with our eyes and we can process that information. That's what's called computer vision. So if you think about, let's think about like Tesla, for example, and their autopilot system. What is actually happening in the background is pixel by pixel, it is looking at what objects are in that pixel. And then from that, it identifies what that object is. And then it has to process like how far away that is and then what to do from that. So that's what's called computer vision and image processing. And so it is pretty complicated in how it works. And I'm not going to get into the algorithms that run the back end of it, but that's AI, right? It's not, image processing and computer vision. when you drive a Tesla, if you drive a Tesla, I don't know, I'm sure Dan has multiple of them. I mean, we just heard that PCO is $1 billion company. He probably has a whole garage of them, but
whole garage.
Yeah. But when you look at you look at these autopilot systems, that's what's going on in the background, is that it's taking a snapshot of the image, it's identifying the object, and and I'm not going to get into algorithms how it does that, but it's pretty impressive how that's doing, that we have the computing power to do that. And then a human can see patterns, and this is the part that's really important for our industry. That's what's called pattern recognition, and it's a form of machine learning. So Dan, for you and you're probably better at this than I am. As a human, we can recognize patterns. So, for example, we can say, hey, that's a group of people, or hey, that's a group of people walking, or we can say, hey, that's a group of insects. That's basically classification and pattern recognition. Normally, we're pretty good in 1, 2, and 3 dimensions, right? A computer is fantastic at this. So whereas we can think in 1, 2, and 3 dimensions, a computer can go to hundreds or even thousands of pattern recognitions. And so if you think about, like, for example, years ago, I used to work for Progress Energy, and we had stock traders, and they didn't work on the New York Stock Exchange, but they worked on the NYMEX, which is basically gas. We traded gas and oil, and we traded electricity. And these stockbrokers were just hilarious. I'm not joking. As you can imagine, they're already characters. But I remember one time we had this big building downtown Raleigh, and we'd be walking out, and I worked on that floor, so I was friends with a lot of them. And I wrote programs for a lot of the stuff that we did. This guy would be like, it's about an 84 gigawatt day. You know what I mean? I mean, legitimately, or megawatt day is what he would say. And sure enough, we would go in and the demand would be that, and that's what we would sell. Well, we can't think beyond patterns like that, but a computer can. Like, we can track maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 variables at most. The computer can track thousands, which to
come
me,
up with that 85 megawatts, or is that germane to this story, or
yeah, it is. So the point of it is that he could take, like, he did this random thing where he would say, this is what it feels like, but he had no validation, no
because of the weather,
because the weather, exactly. He knew the weather, he knew what was going on. I'm not going to get into power generation, but there's no large battery somewhere where you can store it. So the idea is that you generate what you need, but don't generate more, because you're wasting. And if you have to get more, then go on the market and buy it. But anyway, so long story short, there's only so many patterns that we can track, because we're not very good at it as human. Now, we're very creative. It doesn't mean we're dummies or anything. It just means that we can only go so far, whereas a computer can go way down the road, which is why I personally believe that the idea of a stockbroker, I mean, you think about some of these AI algorithms that are using like pattern recognition, how far that's going to go.
Well, they're already doing that with program trading. I mean, that's been around for a while, right? So
for sure.
That's why you have some wild moves in the market, because all the computers pile on, and when they see a trend happening, that's been going on for a while.
Right. So in any case, this whole idea, I'm gonna move on, because I don't want to spend the whole episode just talking about this idea of a metaphor and the different parts of AI. The main point I want to make is that AI in general is really broken out into 2 main parts of AI. There's what's called symbolic learning, which is where you look at images, you look at you look at objects and those types of things, and then you are able to look at images and determine what they are. And then there's what's called machine learning, which is where it's nothing more than statistical learning. So right now, if I say the cat went to the store, right, what it does is all AI is doing is it's taking words and it's looking for patterns. And with statistics, it's able to determine, if he says the cat is, the next probable word that's going to come out of his mouth that's been used several times is this number here, right? So he basically looks at what's statistically going to be the most likely word that's next going to come out of your mouth. So that's a pattern. So what makes this so amazing is not only can it look at what's the next word, it can take a whole group of sentences and a whole paragraph and make that one pathway. It's called a neural network, and I'm not going to go into that completely. But ultimately, what it's able to do is it's able to see the pattern of context and meaning. And that's a completely different game changer, because now that's how AI is able to talk to you like a human, because it can see that if I say a group of words in this order, then this pattern is different, and it can understand the context and the meaning. Did I explain that well enough? Do you understand that, Dan?
Basically, it's predictive. No, it's predictive. Based on it understanding you, it can predict what you're going to do next.
Yeah. So essentially, when you think about computers, okay, computers in general are dumb. And what I mean by that is they only do what you tell it to do. So, and in the presentation, I've done this in other podcasts as well. When I write a program and I say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, I have to program every single step for the computer to do. Every line item by line item. The real challenge has been, how do I get a computer to do things that I did not specifically program it to do? Well, the way you do that is that you teach it how to learn, not to do. So how do you teach a computer how to learn? Is you teach it with lots and lots of data and lots and lots of statistics. And so have you ever heard the concept of you've got to train the model? Have you ever heard that? Like AI training?
Yes, and ChatGPT, what they were doing for quite a while, and I think they still are doing it, right?
They absolutely are still doing it. And so the way that works is ultimately all these models are massive neural networks that have these patterns identified. And so what they're doing is they're feeding, and I forgot, I looked it up on the presentation. I think it's like, oh my gosh, I think it was like, hang on, I got to look it up here. Yes, it was 3.7 billion pages of data, and that was for ChatGPT 2. GPT-4 and GPT-5 is even more than that. So think about 3.735 billion pages of data, where basically all it's learning is which words come or are most likely to come after the next word, and what do those patterns look like? And that's basically called pattern recognition. Now, why is that important? It gets kind of crazy. This is why I think you need to understand as an owner how ChatGPT and large language models and AI works in general, because sometimes people think that, first of all, it's authoritative. It's not. There are biases that get introduced into the training because of the content that it was trained with. Number 3 is that it actually does not think. It's simply following statistics. And so, a model is only as good as it's been trained. And so when you think about ChatGPT and some of these other, ChatGPT is not the only large language model. There's several others as well. They used human trainers to train it, because in some cases, if you think about sentences, like it would start generating, there's what's called a transformer. Google actually created it years ago. This not new technology. I think they created it in like 2017. Sometimes folks would give sentences and what it would say, what it would respond with didn't make any sense. And so they had to train the response and the transformer as well. Well, when they did that training, they actually outsourced that work to people. Guess what those people did? This is the new gig economy. Guess what the trainers did in their training?
No idea.
So
no idea.
They would outsource their work to AI. And if you look in the presentation,
let's just go back to this predictive thing for a second. So if I have a well-trained AI provider, or however you define that, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that I am this is how I guess I'm a little bit of a degenerate gambler on Sundays, and I like to gamble on football, right? Mm-hmm. So can these computers or this AI predict the winners of football games with spreads better than a human? Okay, no. So explain why.
They cannot. So as of right now we're at the end of this episode, we're going to talk about Q Star, which as of right now, we're recording this on November 30th. As of right now,
2023.
No one truly knows what Q Star is. There's been some internal documents leaked from OpenAI. That's what it possibly can do. But here's the issue. AI understands statistics, right? So OpenAI understands statistics. It cannot do math. So if you go and say 2 + 2 equals to what? It'll say, hey, the equal signs in 4, usually comes after 2 plus 2. That's how it answers that. That's it. It has no
It
concept.
doesn't know that 2 plus 2 is 4. It just
doesn't
knows
understand that
when you put those together, that's usually the outcome. That's
usually what
Okay.
comes after it, which
Yeah,
is kind of dangerous, right? Because it's nothing more than statistics that says, here's the pattern. That's machine learning. It does not understand math. Now, I don't want to jump into this quite yet. Okay, well, I just will. Just
momentarily. Donnie is. By the way, did anybody realize what a geek he is? I mean, he's a bug killer, right? So
no,
go ahead.
So this is the issue. So Sam Altman in his last, like, I don't even remember, he was with the Microsoft CEO and OpenAI did their whole conference. He's having his whole Steve Jobs moment. He talks about how like they just hit a new, like, groundbreaking thing at OpenAI. He says it happened like 4 times. There's many, many people who believe that they have figured out a way to have AI train itself and understand math. This is what most people think that's got him fired. Now, the question becomes, why would getting AI to do math get Sam Altman fired? Any guesses?
It doesn't sound like a really high-charged political opinion.
Well,
but
I'm going to quote you just some of the things that came out of the letter of concern. So what happened was that the engineers that were working on this Q-Star project sent the board a letter that said, this technology is a threat to all of humanity. Let me explain why. Okay, so predicting what text is going to come next in a series of words is pretty simple. Being able to train yourself on math and math theorems is a whole nother concept. All of our encryption algorithms is based on math. All of our security is based on math. Anything and everything you could think of that actually runs the universe is based on math. And if you've created a model that can train itself and it could basically break any encryption known to man. It's scary. Okay, what's encrypted, Dan? How about nuclear codes? You know, I mean, it's
how about something more important? How about your bank account?
How about your bank account? Right. Right. Yeah. Think about all the money you're going to spend in nuclear winter. But point I'm making is that, the reality of it is that the board fired him because he was trying to commercialize too soon before they had a chance to think about how this may impact society in general. Now, I'm not trying to be a chicken little here. I'm certainly not trying to spread. I mean,
so he said that it can do math.
He didn't say that.
I'm trying to speculate, but if I'm trying to decode or get a nuclear code, that's not math. That is predictive, right? That's the statistics stuff, right?
It's math.
Why? How?
Okay. Do you really want me to get into this? So
well, somebody said, when your garage door code is 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Is that math, or is that, what comes after 1, 2?
So here's what I will tell you. Let me try to keep it as high level as possible.
Because you need to, because I'm just not as intelligent.
No, so let's just say we made a passcode called Dan is awesome. Like, we typed it out. Okay.
That's a great passcode.
We can create an algorithm that could make a, say, 32 character token that if you know the key, which is like if I put this key in this algorithm, then this algorithm is going to go through a bunch of different math, and eventually it will translate to Dan is awesome. That's what's called a secret key. All encryption is based upon having secret keys, but that secret key can be broken. Now, you think about what it would take to break a 32 character token. Basically take 32 to the what? Well, takes 32, like, basically to the 32nd power, how many possibilities it would be.
32 factorial or whatever, right?
Yeah, to get how many possibilities that's going to be. So that's the kind of math that you would have to do. And that's why encryption works, is because there's no computers around that are large enough to do those types of calculations. But if AI can train itself and understand math theorems, and it can understand how those algorithms work, and it can train itself, now we got something. Now we got some. So anyway, we're way off in speculation. I want to bring it back.
Well, so they fire this guy because of how the world is going to end.
Well, they basically fire him because he's pushing to commercialize it quickly, and obviously there's a huge investment in OpenAI. And by the way, this is not some conspiracy theory podcast. I don't want to turn it into that. Okay, some of this stuff is confirmed, some of it's not. You can go online and look at some of the leaked.
No, but no. Listen, if you had some sort of tool that could break any code, I'm not saying that it's there, so it's not a conspiracy. It's just something that we're putting out there and discussing. That's a dangerous thing.
It's 100% dangerous, which was why a lot of folks are saying he got canned, just because the board was like, this is not falling in line with our values. This is not falling in line with our principles. We're going to send this letter of concern to the board. This needs to get communicated. There's going to be more controls on it, yada, yada, yada. So, okay. Now, what does it have to do with the pest
back
control?
Around to how does a pest control guy make use of this, or gal make use of this knowledge to improve their business? Because our podcast, not like others, they're all about actionable things. Yes. So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. So I would say I'm gonna start in generalities, and I'm gonna name drop a little bit. Okay. So when you think about it, the area of AI that has the most benefit or opportunity for the pest and loan industry right now is what's called machine learning. And in machine learning is very good at data analysis because of this pattern recognition that we talked about, this ability to track, thousands upon thousands of variables and put them all together. So data analysis is going to be pretty great. And then from that, which I think is going to provide a huge opportunity, are predictions, being able to predict. So think about what would that look like in our business. So if you could take a weather forecast and take a look at the time of season and like put all these variables together, potentially AI could tell you, this is how many sales you're going to do. Here's how many stops you're going to do. Here's when the weather's going to start. I mean, like there's a lot of things that could be done. Yeah. Right. I mean, think about that. And so for me, there's obviously going to be a huge impact on routing, real-time routing, right? Based on traffic conditions. I mean, there's just going to be a huge impact on that. And we're already seeing that in Google Maps anyway, but being able to take it back to the database for the scheduling. The other thing is, have you seen this Microsoft 365 Copilot? Have you seen this software yet? Have you heard of it at least?
I just heard of it. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, and by the way, Dan's just grinning ear to ear because we have a huge debate over Microsoft and Apple. I'm an Apple fan. He's a Microsoft fan, and we never argue or bicker over documents or other ways that we share information from a Mac. And
Donnie likes to send me the documents and everything on my phone so that I can't see it. And I want it on my computer, and it seems like it should be an easy thing, but I'm not a Google guy. I'm a Microsoft
So I have
guy,
to email it. I cannot text it.
Yes.
If he was on a Mac. Anyway. All right, moving on. So Microsoft Copilot is basically Microsoft hooking in AI into all of their products. So you can think of like Microsoft Excel, you can think of Microsoft PowerPoint. You can say, hey, create a presentation on Bang, and then Copilot will take it. I tested some of this, and this is pretty freaking cool. So I took a dump from our operations software. I told it, folks, I run PestMac. I took a dump from our customer database, and I said, okay, tell me how many customers canceled during these months and what was the top reason was, and bam, I had an answer. It was freaking amazing. Like, you think about that for a moment, when you can sit around and just like pot shot questions and it will go through. Think about how long.
What is the tool that you're using? So you got Copilot up there, you export your database
to Excel,
Excel, where and Copilot sits in Excel.
Yeah.
And like kind of you had mentioned on one of the last AI things that we did that Google, if somehow, some way it puts Bard into your searches. Well, that started showing up for me after you said that. When I do a Google search, Bard is there telling me everything. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, they probably were.
No, so the way it works is that, and you can do this. There's like an early version in Excel now, and I'm going to pull up Excel here real quick. I forgot what they call it, but it's a small version of it. But the new, like, there's a ton of money going into Microsoft right now because of this Copilot product and what what they think is going to happen, like how much is going to make the product, how much more robust they're going to make the product. But if you go up to analyze data, and it's a little up on your ribbon there for Excel, if you go up to that section, and then you can just type in like human questions, like I want to know how many cancels I had of this service in this month, it will go through and answer that for you. No need for a programmer, no need to understand Excel, hell, no need to understand a formula. It's pretty freaking amazing. So they're going to have this on top of all their products. And so for you, Mr. or Mrs. Pest Control Lawn Care owner, as soon as this gets released, I think, by the way, Google's working on a similar thing. It's not, I mean, they're all going to come out, but this whole idea that you're going to have AI help you generate more content and analyze more data without having to know how to program and without spending your time on doing the lower level stuff. Okay.
Here's one that people don't really talk about it. We see it all the time. You probably, when you were at Colmarch, you saw it. Certain people are, very aware of their data and keeping it very clean. Other people, like we go into clients and their data is just a total mess. Can you use this to take your PestPack data is a mess? Can you use this to clean it up, to tag customers, to
I think
do all the things that you need to do to make it clean, but
right,
you're not a programmer.
So I'm going to try to say this in the most politically correct way I can. I will say in our industry, we are generally speaking pretty slow in the technology world. So yes, is the answer to your question. My guess would be is that you would need to export your data. You would need to clean it up and re-import it. But the answer to your question is absolutely you can do that. And you can do that with current technology. Now, will our CRMs catch up in our industry? They absolutely will, right? It's just generally speaking, we are usually well behind the technology curve. And I mean, you just can't blame them. I mean, you look at the size of our industry compared to other industries, we just don't carry the kind of size of stick that, a lot of these other industries do. So long story short, you're Mr. or Mrs. Pest and Lawn Care Company owner. Keep your eye out for Microsoft 365 Copilot. I think it's going to be a game changer. Same thing if you're on Google Docs. They're already launching a lot of these integrated AI tools to help you generate content, to help you analyze numbers and those types of things. The second thing that I've seen, which has been really, really cool, is that you can use it for call coaching. So you can use AI to analyze calls, what the result of the call is, and then score that and then alert someone. And this technology already exists. It's on the presentation. I'm not going to name drop too much right now, but there's technology out there to do that. There's another software platform called ServiceNow. And by the way, I'm not advocating any of these, especially Excel. No, I'm not advocating or endorsing any of these. I'm just telling you what's out there.
I was surprised you were able to pull it up, but go ahead.
Yes. There's a software out there called ServiceNow, which is basically like a CRM question and question and answer that you can use for customers for like customer service. It's not anything new. I imagine a lot of our listeners are already utilizing some sort of customer service AI bot. If you're not doing that, no problem. I have another solution for you, which was really exciting. So I created my own GPT for Triangle. Did I send you this, Dan? Did I show you this?
No.
So
which slide am I on?
You're not on any slide at this point. We're off slides now. So if you look, let me see. I will see if I can try to share my screen real quick. So I did. If you don't know this, ChatGPT, if you are one of their Plus subscribers or whatever, you can now create your own GPT. And I'm going to share with you, Dan, and our listeners that are watching on YouTube. Can you see my screen here? Mm-hmm. So there's ChatGPT, which is our normal, what we would typically see. And then there's what's called THS Office Coach. And so what I did was I trained it on a lot of our documents that we have. And let's just say, how do I add a customer in PestPack? And I hit that, and then it's going to go to our documentation. This is all real time, so I'm sure it's going to break. It's going to go to our documentation, and then it's going to look through and give me directions. So if I'm a CSR, and look, this is real stuff here, Dan. I mean,
holy mackerel.
Yeah. So I trained this over
for those of you who are not watching, who don't consume our podcast on YouTube, do this particular one. This is wow.
So what it did, so I trained it. I took my office procedures. I trained the model on our office procedures. I gave it a few Q&A, and we have not launched this to all of our CSRs yet. But this whole idea that you can create your own GPT is just unreal. It's unreal. So a GPT stands for generative predictive text. So basically, again, I'll stop sharing that for now, but I'm just showing you just a little bit like this is why I say this is going to change how we do business. Can you imagine, as a new CSR, I'm a new salesperson, I don't even have to read documentation anymore. I can talk to this chatbot, and it's trained on what all my procedures are. It understands what it is, and it gets better and better and better and better over time.
Can it do it in video instead of printing it out?
You could link in video. I don't know that it can generate. I mean, there are AI generation tools, but I don't know of any free ones that you can train it. So in any case, if you're not, again, if you're on ChatGPT and you're one of those Plus subscribers, it's pretty easy. There's tons of videos on the web. There's tons of videos on YouTube. Hey, this is how you go and create your own GPT. You can train it on your own documentation. If you're not comfortable with ChatGPT, there's a thing called private GPT. So tons and tons of options out there. I think this is probably, for me at least, we're going to do one for our customer facing. We're going to do one for our internal, and I want one for every department. I want one for the service department. I want one for the office. I want one for our marketing department. So super, super exciting. I just think it's a ton of fun. So, okay. Last thing, man, I'm going way over here. If you look on the presentation, I outline a way to start implementing AI into your business. Happy to share all of this. There's just a few things I want to close with before we finish. Number one is that don't forget the golden rule. We are in a relationship business. We will never replace that. People want to deal with people. And if you don't believe it, I have a really funny story. And if I've told this over the podcast, you can make fun of me. Make sure you give the complaint to Dan. But I will never forget this. Years ago, my son, who is now 14, when he was 7, we were all buds, and every night I'd go up and talk to him, and I'd read him a book or whatever. And I used to have like these little things called Invisalign. And when I got done with that, they put like this metal retainer on the back of my teeth. You know how they glue those things in. So if you're watching, yes, my bottom teeth are glued in. So I have this like little metal bar on my bottom teeth. This is awful. So one night I'm up reading.
Do you have dentures?
No, I don't have dentures. So I just got this thing put in. I'm upstairs. I'm reading to Blake, and I'm reading a book, and I show him. I'm like, "Hey, buddy, look at this." And I show him this little metal bar that's behind my teeth. I'm like, "Did you know I'm a robot?"
No.
He's like, "Dad, I don't want you to be a robot." I'm like, "Well, son, I still love you." He's like, "But I don't want you to be a robot." By the way, he still tells his story because I had him totally believing that I was some cyborg, But my point is,
that's all right. My kids thought that I was a pirate because I told them that I was a pirate way back when. So I had this little treasure chest. But go ahead.
Well, my point here is that people don't want to have relationships with computers. People want to connect with people, and you just cannot forget that in our industry, right? As much power as AI has, there's one huge gap, and we just will never break the human-to-human connection. It is one of the things that keeps our industry strong. It's one of the things, I remember when I first got in this industry, CB Tudor told me, he said, "Son, you can run your route with your mouth," and he was 100% correct. So point being is, when we talk about AI, don't forget, don't try to go crazy and everything's going to be AI, because I just think that's a wrong move as a business owner. The second thing to remember is that, AI could be the most the algorithms could be perfect, but you have to remember how AI works. AI works off of training. And so if I want to break AI, if I want to manipulate AI, I don't have to break AI. All I have to do is manipulate the data. So, and how hard is it to manipulate data? When you think about it. So I would just say it is absolutely ripe for deception and manipulation. And you need to make sure that you understand how it works and don't take it as fully authoritative. Okay. It is accurate most of the time, but make sure that I would never let anything leave my office or my inbox or anything without me actually putting eyes on it. Because at the end of the day, while it may look and sound authoritative, it can say some funny things. And you can go online and look at some of the things that AI generates. It is pretty freaking hilarious. So, and the third thing I would say is that no one truly knows how these large language model works. They are black boxes, which means that lack of transparency should be concerning. Okay. Again, things that you just need to pay attention to. Last thing I'll say is Albert Einstein said this long time ago. And even if you think about your own human experience, you can agree with this. How many people do you know that are book smart and dumber than a box of rocks? Right? You know what I'm saying? So Albert Einstein said, yeah, he said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And the whole point of it is that AI may know a lot, but know nothing. Right. And so the idea that, I don't think we'll ever be replaced by AI because it can't be creative, right? It can only think of things that it's been trained on. It can't make these creative connections that we do as humans. So I would just say, make sure that you understand how it works. Make sure you understand its limitations. On the presentation, and we'll put it up as well, there are several resources I included. One is called Synthesia, which is a directory for AI software. There's another one called AI Tools Directory, and one called Futurepedia. So you can go on those websites, take a look. I did list some books in there against my own advice, but these are more like big picture, conceptual type books. I think they're pretty good. One's called Prediction Machines, and one's called Human Plus Machine, and then Competing in the Age of AI. These are all philosophical books that I think would be good for you as an owner to read, just to understand how it's going to impact your business. And with that, I'm way over, Dan. You got me on a topic that I really, really care about. Questions.
So what did we learn today? We learned that Donnie is not just a bug killer, but he is a total geek. I mean, this was over my head, but I understand it. It's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
By the way, if you don't watch the YouTube, if you listen to the podcast, just the audio, you got to look at the podcast because you got to see this this ChatGPT that he did, this internal ChatGPT. It's very, very cool. Yeah, very, very interesting. And I don't think that it's funny because when we were thinking about doing an episode, another one on AI, we were like, our producer basically said, yeah, you just did a couple of them, and we're like, well, it's changing so quickly, and we're learning so much about it. So you probably haven't heard the last of it.
Not at all. It's literally changing. It is literally changing monthly. And so we will absolutely stay on top of it. And it's, like I said, it's kind of become a new obsession. I'm super excited. And now that we've got our own GPT, we're going to keep going down the road. And I'm happy to share as we go along how the training's going, how we're leveraging the tools. Again, this is absolutely a catalyst technology, and it is going to change how we do business. And so I know most of our listeners are not living under a rock, and I know that they understand that. But, sometimes it's kind of difficult to think about what I know and what's the real application. So hopefully we're able to do that in this episode. So with that, just a reminder, all the resources and topics that we talked about today, including the presentation and some of the links that I'm going to pull up, are available on the podcast website, pmpindustryinsider.com. Just take a look under show notes. And as always, we appreciate any and every rating, so long as it's 5 stars. And if you have any complaints or concerns, or just general complaining in general, please direct those towards Mr. Dan Corrigan. With that, we're signing off. We'll see you next time. Take care.